All right, so welcome to this week's or this month's deep dive. In June 1991, our submarine received orders to participate in ICE-X. Now, ICE-X is a 2-week exercise where you're under the surface of the Arctic ice, and it's an opportunity to test weapon systems and to collect scientific data and also diving operations. Now, besides that, the weapon systems, the sonar systems, communications, navigation, in a very challenging environment. Now, the unique acoustics that are in the Arctic further compounded by the presence of contoured and reflective ice canopy. And I can tell you, when we first received the opportunity to do this, it's an honor to be able to do this. We were super excited about it, but then we're like, hey, we've never been underneath the surface of the ice. We have divers who are specifically trained so they can handle 29-degree water. We have an upward-looking sonar that's used to take a look at the ice canopy above to see where the ice is too thick and where we could potentially pop through. So there's a lot of different challenges that happen. And again, the regular surface, Western Pacific, just being under the surface of the ocean is a tremendous challenge. Being under the surface of the ice is a lot more. The Arctic is truly one of the last frontiers, and it remains one of the most challenging ocean environments on Earth. The ice below is really uneven. You can see this from what's on the screen, often very thick. And if there's an emergency that happens, like flooding or fire, we can't get to the surface. And what happens is you hit the ice and you go down and you rest in a watery grave 4,000 feet below the surface of the ocean. So when we looked at the 110 crew members, we'd only found that 3 members of the crew had actually operated under ice. And so it was important for us to prepare. So we spent a lot of time in a simulator, and we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how sonar was going to work, because the sound waves that are in the Arctic, they bend differently, and the pressure and the temperature and the salinity all impact how sound travels. And navigation's thrown off too because of the magnetic anomalies near the North Pole. So we had to figure out how to take our sonar system and have it work in an environment we hadn't worked in before. Additionally, we were in the trainer taking a look at how we would operate the submarine in these tremendous conditions. There's a lot of underwater current, and there's a lot of icebergs and caverns that you have to navigate through. And then any emergency where you have to get to the surface becomes a tremendous problem under ice. So they had us feel what it would feel like to have 29-degree water flooding in, and we had to practice and feel this. So all of these things were preparation so that we could be successful in an environment that we hadn't been in before. So welcome to this month's deep dive. When we think about the submarine and the life and death situations that we had to deal with preparing to go underneath the surface of the ice, I want to talk today, and in this deep dive, I want to talk about the looming recession that's coming up. That's why it's called 5 Keys to Becoming Recession Ready. And I want to start off just by, if you could type in the chat, in the 2007-2008 crisis, where were you? What were you doing? 2007-2008 crisis, what were you doing? Unemployment went from 5% to 10%. Stock market lost half of its value. Housing prices fell 30%. Almost 2 million businesses went out of business, and non-essential businesses were hit the hardest. I was in my room in Chicago. I was at the gym. All right. I was in college. Okay. I was leading a company. All right. So good. So where I was a turnaround CEO of a company, and in 2002, 2007, 2008, and what I learned and how we were able to be successful, I'd actually learned in the previous recession of 2000. In 2000, I was the head of technology of a small startup, and we're trying to take advantage of the electricity industry. And I can tell you, one of the things that we failed at, and was a very harsh lesson to learn, was we didn't do preparation training where we looked at different scenarios of what might happen if certain situations or certain scenarios played out. It was a very very painful lesson, and it was a very expensive lesson. But I was able to use those lessons from 2000 to apply to 2007, 2008, and be successful. And when I talk to CEOs that I'm coaching, the countless CEOs I'm coaching, well, what most of them are saying is, hey, I wasn't really the CEO of a company in 2007, 2008, so I don't have this experience. And so a lot of us don't have this experience of going through a recession, just like we didn't have the experience under the surface of the ice. A lot of people don't have this experience going through a recession. So next question is, let's just go in. Why don't we type in, what are your biggest fears of a recession, of this recession coming up? What's the biggest fears of this upcoming recession? So just type that in the chat. So just type that in the chat. Okay. What's your biggest? Oh, okay, number of people. Okay, don't have the number of people. Growth. Okay, good. Talking to a lot of CEOs, they're worried about growth. Cost, supply chain issues. Yep, definitely see that. Supply chain issues again. Yes. People, great resignation. All right, fantastic. Really good stuff. So here's what we're seeing in the we're seeing a lot of things as it relates to the upcoming recession, and we don't want to let this balloon get away, but it's record high inflation is number one. Number two is a lot of employees, they're worried about layoffs because they heard about the layoffs that happened in 2007, 2008. Right now, there's record low consumer confidence. University of Michigan has been tracking consumer confidence since 1952. It's the lowest it's ever been. And again, a lot of you talked about this, you have supply chain issues. All right, so let's go to this next one. I found this an interesting statistic. 56% of leaders fully believe 100% that a recession is coming. So I want you to now type in, we're going to do a quick poll here, and we're going to type in how many of those CEOs, how many have a contingency plan or have done contingency planning? So you see a poll on your screen. So how many have done contingency planning? What percentage do you think have done contingency planning? All right, good. So let's produce the results. So you see the results on the screen. It looks like majority of us didn't get it exactly right. It's interesting that only 39% have done contingency planning. And I saw this quote by Warren Buffett I thought was fantastic. When the tide goes out, you discover who's been swimming naked. And again, we don't want you swimming naked in the upcoming recession. So here's an interesting statistic that was done, and it talks to preparation. This is Harvard Business Review, Bain McKinsey. They looked at 4,700 companies that went into the 2007-2008 recession. And what they determined was that the leader being prepared was the biggest determinant of whether the company was going to be successful. Now, what they found is that during the recession, that 9% of companies flourished. 9% flourished, and they were able to grow 17% during the recession. And then when we talk about post-recession, those that were prepared and ready, they grew on an average annual rate of 14%, while those who weren't prepared, they basically stagnated. So it's obviously very important that we're prepared and take a look at a bunch of different factors so we can be successful and go through the recession and use it to our advantage, but then also thereafter profit and benefit from it. And what happens is the strongest go on offense as others wait out the storm. And what I can tell you is just a really high level. If you've never been through this recession before, they happen about once every 5 years, once every 4.5 years. And every storm eventually runs out of rain. So I know it's this combination of looking at short-term and long-term, but make sure you're having a long-term focus on a lot of decisions that you're making today. All right, so let's start this off. We're going to go backwards. Top 5 things. Number 5, steady as she goes. Number 5, steady as she goes. So stay the course of what you have, and then when and if something does happen, then be prepared to adjust the sails. Now, there's probably a lot of different companies that are online right now, and everyone's going to start off in a different position. And based upon your specific industry, you're going to have to take different actions. But these are the top 5 things that you should definitely look at. All right, so let's open up another poll here, and let's talk about communication, because it's really important that during any type of stressful situations that we're over communicating. So here we go. This poll is employees, your employees, what percentage of your employees want to be communicated to on a weekly basis? What percentage of your employees want to be communicated on a weekly basis? We got the votes coming in. Good. All right, 5 more seconds. Last one's coming in. All right, good. So let's show the results of the poll. Yep, so you can see that looks like majority of us got it correct, 90%. So here's the thing. The statistic is 90% of your employees, they want to be communicated on a weekly basis. And when you think about it, 29% want to be communicated on a daily basis. So it's really important to make sure that we're communicating. So what are some of the ways that you can do that? Number 1 is a daily huddle. We've talked about daily huddles. We talked about it in the last deep dive. Make sure you're doing daily huddles. Number 2 is monthly all hands. Make sure you're doing a monthly all hands meeting. This is 15, 20-minute meeting where you're interacting directly with everybody in the company. So make sure you keep those lines of communication open. We see when you have a stressful situation or condition, like during COVID, we actually encouraged our clients to do weekly all hands meetings because things were just changing so fast that it was really important that the employees could hear and see their leaders, and any changes that were made could be communicated directly with them instead of just sending out an email. And then make sure you're doing one-on-ones. Make sure you're doing monthly one-on-ones, checking in with your employees. And this is 15 minutes to do a monthly one-on-one. So those are the big things that you can do to keep your communications channels open. We have heard that a lot of companies during COVID, they actually stopped their daily communications meeting. And we said, hey, don't do that. Pour into it. And a lot of companies kind of came to us and said, hey, we would have never gotten through COVID without it. So steady as she goes. The next thing that I want to make sure you're looking at is keep a really close look at your KPIs, your key predictive indicators. And make sure that you're looking at them on a more frequent basis. Now you're looking for leading indicators. So here's just some examples. I don't know exactly for your business how that would look, but for the construction industry, you would look at building permits that were applied for. For real estate, you would look at the inventory that's available and maybe the average price of the house in your area. For manufacturing, you're looking at inventory available and days of supply. So make sure you're keeping a close eye on your KPIs and make sure you're looking at the leading indicators. All right, so that's the number 5 thing is steady as she goes. Just over communicate and keep your eye on your dashboard. Number 4, I have to go through this because it's really important, but these will make a lot of sense. Make sure your financial house is in order. When we take a look at financial house in order, I'm talking about making sure you have enough cash, make sure cash is king, right? As you're going through a recession, any financial impact that you can have, you can make sure you can tap into that. Number 2 is make sure you have access to working capital. Amazon, right before the recession of 2000, they went out and they secured $67 million of loans. A week later, the recession hit and the market dove, and they would have never gotten those funds. And so Amazon that we know today might not be what it is because it would have probably gone out of business. So make sure that you have access to working capital. And then make sure you're reducing any unnecessary costs. Fourth is, I want you to take a look at a couple of different scenarios and stress test your P&L and your balance sheet. When we take a look at what does turbulence look like, don't do this while you're in the middle of it. Actually practice it before, so you're making decisions without emotion. But I want you to take a look at a scenario where you have negative growth. I want you to look at a scenario where you have to lower your price by 20%. And I think you should look at a scenario where your supply costs, the costs to do what you do, go up 20%. So definitely make sure that you're taking a look at that. Companies during the last recession, they did this and they had access to working capital, and they didn't pull things back. They were actually very prepared. Samsung was able to double down on their R&D. They had a 4 times increase in their investment in R&D. They created 4 different centers, and they were able to do that at a reduced price. They also hired a senior exec from L'Oreal for their brand to position the Galaxy phone, the first Galaxy phone. And before they did all that, they were their brand was ranked the number 21 ranked brand, and today it's ranked number 6. And it was all because they were able to take advantage of these opportunities during that last recession. I want to spend a little bit of time on this because if you ever have to make layoffs, I think it's really important that you take a look at your employees in a different manner. And these are based on the employee engagement statistics that came out from Gallup just 6 weeks ago. If we look at a 50-person company, the percentage of disengaged is 17%. So I'm just going to give you an example. So there's 9 employees in a 50-person company who are fully disengaged. There's 26 who are apathetic. That's about 51% of your workforce. And then there's 16 who are fully engaged. Now, we should treat these employees a little bit differently when we're looking at who we should keep and who we shouldn't. Because the total wages for this, if you just take the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the total annual wages for the disengaged is $698,000. For the apathetic, it's about $2.1 million. And then for the engaged, it's $1.3 million. Now, the wage loss for each of these by McLean and Company, they found out that you lose about $3,400 for every $10,000 of wage that you pay an employee. That's a 34% loss. They also found out that for apathetic, it's about an 18% loss. And then for engaged, there's no loss because they're actually fully engaged. When you look at that, the wage loss that you have is $237,000. So let's just stay here for a second. You're paying $698,000, but out of that $698,000, $237,000 of it is basically lost. You're not getting any return on it. If you take a look at what it looks like for apathetic, it's $377,000, and then for engaged, there is no loss. So for this company, there's an annual wage loss of close to $615,000. As you are looking at your employees, and as you're deciding if you have to get down to the point where you have to make layoffs, you're deciding who you have to lay off. I want you to really think about focusing on the 9 that are rowing in the wrong direction and making sure that you keep the 6 and the 16 that are there. And this is regardless of how long have they been there. If there's someone who's been there for 3 months and they're a fully engaged employee, and there's someone who's been there for 15 years and they're fully disengaged, you have to make that choice that, hey, we're going to keep the person who's fully engaged and has potential to be an A player. So I want you to take a look at that. In 2007, 2008, we actually had someone in a different department who was an A, and we didn't need that many people. We actually repurposed that person to another department. Now, we worked with them and said, hey, we're going to repurpose you over here. Are you okay with that? They loved the company so much that they did that, and they made that shift. When we got back to through the recession, we actually moved the person back. So that's how I want you to think about looking at your employees if you do have to make the financial decision to go through layoffs. All right, so one of the ways that you can do this is it's called the 9-box. You can 9-box every employee. You can go look this up online, or you can contact us and I'll get you some information on it. But you go through and you ask a bunch of questions on each employee, and you get to evaluate who they are. And then this can more easily see whether they're an A player, a B player, or a C player. we're, the saying is typically train for or hire for values, train for skill. We're saying keep for values, train for skill. So the most sought after attributes right now for any job is, can the person collaborate in a team environment? Can they communicate effectively? Can they adapt to changing circumstances? And can they problem solve and think critically? So those are the most sought after attributes that you're looking for as you're doing this 9-box. All right, so A, B, and C players matter. We say that A is the top 10% in the industry for their specific position. We say B is with 24 months of training can get to an A, and we say C is neither an A or B, and those are the people that that are rowing in the wrong direction or don't exhibit the values. Those are the people you have to make the choice on and make that hard choice as to who you're going to keep and who you're not. Yes, Lauren, we'll definitely provide the slides for you. So yes, no worries on that. Okay, so when you take a look, one of the things you should do is you should pull out your organizational chart, and you should spend 5 seconds on each person in there, and you should do an A, a B, or a C. And you can readily identify who should stay and then who should go. All right, so that's really important that you look at it from that perspective. When we did that in 2007, 2008, we were actually able to upgrade our team because we used it as an opportunity to remove people from the bus that should have never been on the bus. All right. Number 4 on this is be prepared to bargain shop. So I recommend that you be aware of your competitors and what they are doing. Keep an eye on them. They found that when companies between 2003 and 2007, they found all of those companies actually had similar net profit. But when the recession hit in 2007, 2008, there was a tremendous divergence. 9% of companies who were fully prepared, they actually, their profits rose. And their profits rose 47% more than when there was a stable time. So let me say that again. 9% of the companies diverged and they were able to grow, and they grew their profits 47% more than during a stable time. So they were able to take advantage of opportunities. They were able to take advantage of dips. They were able to bargain shop. And so just be prepared of what your list looks like. Now, Stanley, back in 2007, 2008, they were able to purchase Black & Decker because during that time, Black & Decker's revenues had fell 22% and their profit had fallen 41%. So again, be prepared to bargain shop. So that's it. So these are the 5 areas as we take a look at looking at your financial house and put it in order. That's the second, or that's the 4th one. So let's go to number 3. I want you to really take a look at leveraging technology. You have to become friends with technology. There's a couple areas that I really want you to focus on. Number 1 is how do you become more efficient and how to become more cost effective in delivering your services. Now, Honeywell during the 2007, 2008, they were able to tap into augmented reality tools, and they were able to reduce their maintenance costs by 50% for offshore platforms. Anywhere you live across the United States, here in Southern California, it's called Fast Track. But remember when we used to drive the toll roads and there was a person that was inside that would collect cash? That's gone. That's all technology right now. So there are these opportunities within your specific business that you can take advantage of. And I want you to make sure you're taking a look at those technologies and see whether you can automate anything that's in those different areas. Okay, the next piece that I want you to look at is old way to new way. I want you to take a look at what, hey, this is the way we did it in the old way. Here's how we do it in the new way. This is an example of MEDTRONIC. They're actually a company that provides healthcare services. They bought Maser Robotics. They bought a robotics company, and the reason they did that is they wanted to assist their current surgeons and help them to do spinal surgery better. So think about opportunities that you have where you can look at, hey, this is an old way, and we have to take a look at a new innovative way. MEDTRONIC did a great job, and they're flourishing after the recession. They were able to flourish tremendously. And then finally, I want you to really think about using technology to keep your employees connected, regardless of where they're working. We have our app, and but there's other technology services like Slack and Teams, probably using all those, Zoom. And what are you using to keep your culture connected and engaged? So number 3 is making sure you're leveraging technology. All right, so let's go to number 2. I want you to really think about strengthening your employee connection. There's a war on talent that's happening. 11.3 million open jobs, only 5.9 million unemployed. What I know is that there's no A players on the street, so people aren't hiring other people, or companies aren't hiring people from being unemployed. They're hiring from other companies. That means they're hiring from your company. Who is on the job market? Everyone's on the job market. There's been a 57% rise in employees being actively targeted when the employee is not even looking for a job. So just know that every single one of your employees are on the market. These are recent statistics to be aware of. Why are people leaving? Number 1 is a lot of money. People are getting offered money. But number 2 is inflexible work hours. So 32% are leaving because there's inflexibility in work hours. Number 2 is 18% believe that there's a lack of belief in their leadership. And number 3 is lack of development opportunities at their company. So make sure you understand why those are happening. Now, companies that are remote friendly, they're experiencing 33% less turnover. This is what employees are looking for. Recently released, and about 3 weeks ago, 92% are just looking for 1 day a week or more being remote, and 80% are looking for greater than 3 days. So if you can, make sure you can offer a remote friendly environment. All right, what's the leader's top investment right now, getting ready for the recession? 47% are investing in helping their employees find purpose in their work, right? Find purpose in their work. And we know how valuable having people who are fully engaged. And then 45% are investing in creating opportunities for career growth. So what I highly recommend that you do as a leader is I recommend you do small group meetings. I did this in 2007, 2008 for the company that I was at. I didn't do a huge meeting. I did a small group meeting. It was more intimate. And I did a bunch of those, and people felt more comfortable talking when we did this. The last thing I would say is, if your employees aren't making what the market wage is, they're going to be a lot more easily swayed to go away. Now, the statistic is you can keep an employee up to about 25% of their wage if they're fully engaged in their work. If they're not engaged in their work and they don't feel purpose, you can basically pay someone just a little bit more money and they'll switch jobs. So just be aware of that. So strengthen the employee connection. So here it is, meet with middle managers. And again, I'll get you this whole list. Meet with the middle managers, realign them with purpose. I just did this last week with a CEO. We went to 3 different offices and we met with each of the middle manager teams and we had a really great conversation. They got to hear directly from the CEO, here's what we're doing, here's where we're going, and got them realigned to purpose. Make sure you're offering market wages, make sure you're offering a flexible work option, and then make sure you are offering professional development. All right, so that is number 2, and we're going to finish up here with number 1. I want you to channel your inner Winston Churchill. I want you to channel your inner Winston Churchill. Now, Churchill, obviously one of the most studied leaders because of the challenge that he was faced in 1940 with England and World War II and the Nazis. And what he did is he started with the end in mind. He envisioned a Europe that was free again. And so I want you to do the same thing, because remember, every storm runs out of rain. So start with the end in mind. And I love this quote by him. It says, "Kites rise the highest against the wind, not with it." So to channel your Churchill, definitely lean into your values and your brand purpose. Number 2 is make sure you're confronting the brutal facts of the situation. 3 is always have an optimistic, positive growth mindset. And then number 4, treat humans as humans with respect and dignity. So those are the 5 recession-ready keys that I want you to focus on as we go into these next 6 months. Just leave them up on the screen here. I'm going to open it up to further questions. So if anybody has any questions, you can type those in. All right, here's a good one. Should I have my employees take a 10% pay cut if I need to do layoffs? Oh, should I have all of my employees take a 10% pay cut if I need to do layoffs? Okay, so Lisa, I would recommend against that unless everyone in your company is an A player. If everyone in company is an A player, bring them all together and say, hey, are we all willing to take a 10% pay cut? If you have very disengaged employees, you have C players in the company, and you ask everybody to come together and take a pay cut, your A players they're going to get disgruntled because they're going to say, hey, why am I taking a pay cut when I, am more productive? I'm an A player here. Why am I taking a pay cut when the other person who's a C player? Why am I doing that? So I would highly recommend against that. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So can you tell me more about the deep dives? Okay, great. Yeah. So the deep dives are happening once a month. It's 30 minutes to talk to you about the things that I'm seeing when I'm coaching clients and CEOs. And it's based upon what's happening in the market. And it's just to give you the most relevant information so you can be successful as a leader. So those are happening every month. And then we also have a couple other support pieces and this is happening every Thursday. We have a weekly Thursday VIP coaching call. That's happening also. And that's being delivered by Marc Koehler, the VP of Client Experience. We have the monthly deep dive. And then we have boot camps that are coming up. And the boot camp is a 2-day experience where you can bring yourself, you can bring your leadership team, and it's intensive. And we go through the different components of fast attack leadership and how to develop an E3 culture. If you want to learn more about that, we can send out information. You can go to our events page also, and there's a QR code on the screen. I'll just leave it up there in case you have any questions and you want to go check it out. But if you have any questions on it, definitely contact us, and we'll answer any questions that you have. The September boot camp is sold out. We have 3 spots available for the October boot camp, and then we're setting our schedule for next year of when those boot camps are going to happen. All right, so doesn't look like there's any other questions. So thank you so much for taking the time to invest the time. Remember, preparation is what's going to get you through this. Make sure you're running through those scenarios. Make sure you're connecting with your middle managers. I'm talking about face-to-face connection, having conversations with them, and make sure you're over-communicating on a daily and a weekly basis, and you're going to do fantastic, and you're going to get through the recession, and you're going to be recession ready. All right, so thanks again for showing up, and go out today and make it a great day.